We're going to be going through civil rights issues on and near WSU and University of Idaho. We're going to talk a bit about the guy who interviewed Kohberger going from Pullman Police to WSU's police chief, and about investigations that might have been pertinent to the murders and the dirty dealings that could or undoubtedly was involved in the demise of the Idaho 4 victims.
Insight into how close he came to working for a department that would soon have officers investigating him for murder. Newly obtained documents show Bryan Kohberger, the WSU PhD candidate who's now charged with 4 counts of murder.
Bryan, what are you doing?
Once a finalist for a job within the Pullman Police Department. Kohberger, who studied and taught criminology, was arrested by the FBI days before the new year, 47 days after 4 University of Idaho students were found stabbed to death.
Yes.
Probable cause documents revealed Kohberger's past education included undergraduate degrees in psychology and cloud-based forensics. That Kohberger applied for an internship within the Pullman Police Department. Emails obtained by King 5 show that on April 1st, then WSU Police Chief Gary Jenkins is informed that Kohberger was one of 4 finalists. The position? A doctoral-level graduate research assistantship for public safety. The job? Aggregate data from the Pullman Police Department and propose changes based on the interpretation.
I think nobody had any idea really of how close we were to the suspect.
Tonight, we've learned Kohberger met virtually with Chief Jenkins. And then Kohberger followed up with this email sent on April 12th. It was a great pleasure to meet with you today and share my thoughts and excitement regarding the research assistantship for public safety. Best regards, Bryan. 8 months later, he'd be in custody.
Has named a new acting police chief following misconduct allegations. The WSU Police Sergeant Don Daniels will now be serving as acting chief. The school is conducting a disciplinary investigation into allegations of employee misconduct within the department. WSU not yet sharing the names of who is under investigation. They say it is still ongoing, but the police chief and the vice president for public safety have both resigned. The school says they will release additional information once their investigation wraps up in the next few weeks.
A Washington State University police officer is under investigation following allegations that he engaged in sexual activities while on duty. And now 3 high-ranking members of the department are leaving their jobs. Graham 2's Amanda Rowley explains why in this developing story from Pullman tonight.
2 years ago, WSU Police Command staff learned one of its officers engaged in sexual activities while on duty. That command staff conducted an internal investigation instead of reporting this to the university. Now that they face possible termination, the chief, assistant chief, and captain all plan to retire.
Washington State University says a WSU police officer reported the allegations to command staff from a third-party source. They claimed Sergeant Matt Kurt engaged in non-consensual sexual activity. The reporting officer later clarified it was consensual, but it happened while the officer was on duty. WSU spokesperson Phil Weiler says the inappropriate activity allegedly happened in the presidential suite at Martin Stadium and at the WSU Observatory.
It does look like there were multiple individuals he was involved in. Some of them were employees at the time or currently employees.
To the best of his knowledge, none of the people involved were underage or a student at the time. WSU policy requires such claims to be reported to the university. Since the command staff didn't do this, they could face possible termination. As the university conducts its own investigation, Sergeant Kurt and the command staff were put on home assignment. But now the university says Police Chief Bill Gardner, Assistant Chief Steve Hansen, and Captain Mike Larson are now retiring.
Former Pullman Police Chief Gary Jenkins retired this year. He is now committed to serving as WSU's interim police chief while the university searches for a permanent replacement. Reporting in Pullman, Amanda Rowley, KREM 2 News.
But the important part here to note is that WSU has a police force of fully commissioned police officers. Campus security officers, although sometimes called officers, are non-commissioned and may not have full law enforcement powers. Those powers won't extend to areas that are off of the campus, and they can only respond to non-emergency calls. They often work closely with local law enforcement agencies, but generally do not have the power to make arrests or carry firearms. So campus security officer can be much different than campus police officer. Campus police officers have commissioned officers who have full law enforcement powers on their campus and the surrounding areas. They have complete police academy training, they carry firearms, they have the power to make arrests and investigate crimes, enforce laws, and of course cooperate with local and state federal agencies. WSU is one of those police forces. They have fully commissioned officers, they have the power to arrest, they have the power to police the surrounding areas, plus on campus, they are an entire police force with full police powers right there to be able to police for WSU problems. Now, let's talk about WSU's problems, starting with problems with Chief Bill Gardner, his assistant Chief Hansen, and the Captain Mike Larson, all of whom are a part of the command staff at the Washington State University. This huge investigation was launched after attention of the university officials was brought to that of one Kurt, an officer who had not been properly disciplined for his alleged misconduct. The command staff members have since retired in lieu of discipline. The allegations against Sergeant Matt Kurt, according to the investigation, can be categorized as follows. Sexual misconduct. Kurt allegedly engaged in sexual relations while on duty in the presidential suite of Martin Stadium in December 2020. Unprofessional conduct. Kurt allegedly made inappropriate comments about student interns, such as, "Can you have them do that calisthenics move again?" And "Got any hot interns this year?" Inappropriate communications. Kurt reportedly sent inappropriate pictures to a former employee and used a ringtone associated with a pornographic website. Bow chicka wow wow. Physical misconduct. Kurt allegedly groped a newly hired female employee of the department. Wow! This incident was reported by Chief Gardner, but was not documented or disclosed to the Compliance and Civil Rights. Word. Failure to report. Kurt offered to provide the name of the woman involved in his own sexual misconduct allegation, but the command staff, including Chief Gardner, his assistant Hansen, and Captain Larson, allegedly said it was not necessary. But when they were specifically asked why they didn't follow up on the allegations, in true dirty cop style, they alleged that they didn't have enough information about the alleged victim of the crime. Yeah, that's right, the victim for which the perp offered information about, and they were just like, "Nah, buddy, thanks though, that's so sweet of you. How kind." So all of these allegations led to an ongoing compliance and civil rights investigation, which eventually, of course, was going to lead to Title IX action against Kurt. That's right, federal civil rights laws. But oops, everyone retired, so no need to bring disciplinary action, no big deal.
The same officer who interviewed Bryan and subsequently took over the WSU police force amidst corruption allegations was the same chief who oversaw a Pullman sergeant, charged with the sexual assault of an 18-year-old intoxicated WSU student while in his custody.
A Whitman County judge instructed 12 jurors to decide if former Pullman Police Sergeant Jerry Hargraves is guilty of either first or second-degree sexual misconduct. The result, a hung jury. During deliberations, the jury asked to review the DNA testing process and some of the testimonies, but the judge did not allow it. Whitman County Prosecutor Dennis Tracy says state law recommends judges should not allow jurors to review particular testimony. The fear in doing so is that might overemphasize some evidence over another. The jury only deliberated for about a day and a half before telling the judge they could not come to a consensus. Tracy says state law instructs judges to not require a jury to continue deliberations if they clearly say they cannot agree and won't be able to. That's what happened in this case. According to Spokane County Prosecutor Larry Haskell, mistrials are not uncommon. He says typically if a case is retried, the prosecutor's office will consider the nature of the charges and what could be done differently. But until a settlement is made or the prosecutor decides to go to trial again, Haskell says the defendant's charges are still in place. The Whitman County prosecutor plans to make a decision on how to move forward next week.
The Whitman County prosecutor made an announcement regarding the sexual assault case involving former Pullman Police Sergeant Dan Hargraves. The prosecutor declared that they will not pursue a retrial, stating that the victim has expressed a desire to avoid additional trauma and indignity associated with another trial. This decision brings an end to the legal proceedings surrounding the case.
ASWSU, Associated Students of Washington State University, put out the following statement. The Associated Students of Washington State University value the safety, security, and well-being of all students. The alleged actions of former Pullman Police Sergeant Dan Hargraves stand in direct contrast to these values. The ASWSU firmly believes the alleged actions are a direct threat to the sense of safety that law enforcement is meant to provide to the community and our students. Furthermore, ASWSU is deeply disappointed by the declaration of the trial by Whitman County Superior Court Judge Gary Libby in regards to the legal proceedings of the ongoing case. Recognition of the literal and symbolic threat Mr. Hargraves poses to students is by no means acceptable for Mr. Hargraves to not be held accountable by the rule of law. On behalf of the Associated Students of Washington State University, we urge Whitman County Prosecutor Dennis P. Tracy to retry Mr. Hargraves for the crimes he has been charged with. As a plethora of media outlets have reported, Mr. Hargraves is credibly accused of sexually assaulting an 18-year-old WSU undergraduate student. In March of 2018, Hargraves was placed on administrative leave while an external investigation occurred. The investigation found that Mr. Hargraves detained an intoxicated freshman student and instructed her to perform oral sex on him to avoid being arrested. The investigation verified cell phone location tracking data and DNA evidence that corroborated the story of the student. Following a recommendation from a Washington State patrol, charges for custodial sexual misconduct were filed in Whitman County. Earlier this month, Judge Gary Libby ruled a mistrial due to a hung jury. ASWSU undoubtedly believes and supports the victim, and it is absolutely imperative that Mr. Hargraves be held accountable for the revolting actions he allegedly committed. To not proceed with the trial would be a gross miscarriage of justice. With all, Mr. Hargraves has no place in Pullman Police Department or WSU community and must be held accountable for his actions. ASWSU is completely committed to the well-being and safety of students on and off campus. In doing so, we actively advocate for fully retrying Mr. Hargraves for his alleged crimes and formally removing him from the Pullman Police Department in an effort to restore and protect student trust in our local law enforcement officers. End quote. They also notably wrote that with their statement and this post. This is our official statement calling for the retrial of Dan Hargraves. Sexual assault is unacceptable. Victim blaming is unacceptable. Lack of justice is unacceptable. Hashtag I believe her. Is that a note that it was victim blaming to say the victim was why the prosecution decided not to retry him? There was also this report which stated that there were 2 officers who had WSU sexual allegations made against them, and obviously one was also a sergeant, and it doesn't appear, I guess, to be connected to the cases for which we already covered, because none of those mentioned a co-defendant or another officer being involved. So, geez Louise, who knows how many incidents are covered up in that school. And bringing us back to commissioned officers, right? So their police have the same powers that MPD has over the outside area of the campus as well. So they are comparable to these guys. And I don't understand how in the world the Office of Civil Rights paperwork wouldn't be relevant in this case, and it obviously is, since University of Idaho's attorneys had actually hit up the court to let them know that certain files were not going to be mandated under FERPA anymore because the victims were deceased, and FERPA doesn't cover the deceased, and therefore there would need to be extra protections enacted through the attorneys and through the courts in order to redact that information and protect it from being disclosed to the public. Notably, they mention other students that go to the University of Idaho. And since they're not deceased, one would wonder what about their records pertaining to FERPA still being relevant in their cases since they're not deceased. How are they relevant and in need of extra protections? And I'm wondering if it is something to do with, of course, the type of registration that these quote-unquote students might have if we are talking about undercover investigations. Because, as I mentioned before, a lot of the people were pretty ticked off about the undercover investigations whenever they first started being revealed back in the early 2000s by the DEA. And people were upset because the university allowed these quote-unquote students, the undercover agents, to pay to play. So basically, they had to pay a certain amount for that student enrollment, quote-unquote enrollment, so in quotes, enrollment, because it isn't an actual enrollment, and apparently the undercovers never actually had to go to class in many of those cases. But that kind of shit is the stuff that can get you popped, so I would imagine any deep cover operatives would actually be going to class, or at least a class. That was obviously very early into these operations. They had not fully gone undercover in schools before in the early 2000s, so they had certainly never done any widely elaborate investigations yet. But as you know, that has changed now, because in 2020, a large investigation uncovered not just a DTO, a drug trafficking organization, but a transnational drug trafficking organization connected to a school, actually connected to several schools and several fraternities and sororities working within those schools in order to transport those drugs and utilizing the students from the schools in order to do so, including everything from steroids, ecstasy, Molly, you name it, as the DEA lead agent stated. Either way, it's quite notable that the records have been extra sealed up in the case of students who aren't deceased and in the case of our 4 victims. This undoubtedly means that many of them have investigation records open and possibly closed as well within the OCRI, the Civil Rights and Investigations Office within the University of Idaho. Now I'm going to read this verbatim from their website. Civil Rights and Investigations. The Office of Civil Rights and Investigations, the OCRI, is responsible for ensuring compliance with federal and state laws related to discrimination, harassment based on a protected class. This includes retaliation when engaging in protected process. We undertake necessary investigations and prepare recommendations and written reports. University of Idaho employees have a responsibility to report cases of discrimination and harassment. We aim to review all submissions within the business day. If this is an emergency, please dial 911, yada yada. Sorry, insert open quote and end quote there. So that means that obviously there are records within this office that pertain to the deceased students as well as other students, notably in the defense attorney and the prosecuting attorneys. That can be found right on the website where the case against Bryan Kohberger is being held. Now, notably, this is a stipulation between the attorneys to not bring any of these records into the case. So in order to bring anything that is in these records in this motion back up and bring them into the trial itself or back into the case, they would need further stipulation and agreement and or hearing from a judge in order to amend this order or vacate this order. So the meaning of this motion itself is essentially to hide these files. This is extremely notable in a case where we know that the police have behaved the way they have behaved at the 1122 King residence, where they refused to let the girls maintain their civil rights and their constitutional right to not answer the door. The right to not answer the door is a fundamental right that an individual has in order to maintain their own privacy and control over their home and personal space. It is the right to choose whether or not to invite someone into your private domain. This right is protected under various laws and regulations, including the 4th Amendment of the United States Constitution. No big deal. Oh wait, it is a big deal. When law enforcement officials or other individuals come to someone's home, they're expected to respect an individual's decision not to answer the door. While it may require in some situations, such as having a warrant that someone come to the door and or else, but otherwise with no warrant, people can choose not to respond, just like they do when relatives who were uninvited come by. You guys ain't shit for that. Now, individuals who are well informed about this should know that it's important how you engage and invoke your rights whenever it comes to the police. Invoking those rights when engaging, stay calm, have your own accountabilities, such as a phone, which has a camera that backs up to Google Cloud, Google Drive, Google Photos. Photos does this really easily. The Photos app, you can easily have it back up all of your videos to a cloud. So if your phone dies during the interaction, you will still have it. But the cops should be disciplined for harassing the college like this. Seriously, for harassing anyone like this. But I mean, they're especially harassing a vulnerable aspect of society and a vulnerable aspect of citizens who are fresh from mom and dad's nest and probably not very astute at maintaining their constitutional rights like the rest of America. But the police are committing crimes against them. They are escalating the situation. They're using way excessive force for a noise complaint. And I want you to just listen to this. Just listen to this quote unquote noise complaint. You can hear that cop breathing. It's so quiet. Other than the cops laughing and getting super hyped, being hyped that the girls are afraid of them, armed men banging on the door, threatening to escalate the situation, checking out the power, because that's not freaky. I see a bunch of agitated police making threats. I see a bunch of agitated police making threats whenever someone's not coming to the door. They'll come to your work. They'll call your landlord. They'll escalate it to the university. They're perfectly okay having people's financial aid and other benefits that they receive from the college, from their college education, removed over their own agitation, over their own control issues. They have no respect at all for the constitutionality of any of these citizens we are seeing them interact with. They are threatening, harassing, and violating the Constitution of the United States of America in this video and throughout the entire thing, and throughout every single contact that they have with this residence. So the fact that these are all sealed up in the court now and stipulated between both attorneys to not come up again without further notice and or court hearing seems kind of confusing and disheartening. Also, it's worth noting that one of the cops who, seems to be playing good cop as he's leaned up against the pole, there's Idaho's good taxpaying dollars at work for you guys. Moscow City Police receiving half of the funding for the city. The entire city's 50% of that funding goes to the Moscow City PD for this shit, so they can do this. And it's clear that the cop is taking a picture of Kaylee's information, and where it pertains to information, this entire interaction is sketchy anyway. It's sketchy every single time, yet again, and this is why, because they're not actually handing out citations. No one received a citation in any of the videos that we see, so why they're taking down names, phone numbers, and why they want to see IDs is completely outside of the statutes or the regulations or the Idaho code or the municipal code for noise violations in this instance, or any instance for that matter, why they are obtaining so much info from the people who live in the home. It's also outside the color of law why they are harassing girls when they know that it's mostly females in here anyway, right? Oh yeah, they do know that. Oh, look at that, ladies and gentlemen. Anyone in control of the premises can be warned. Anyone in control of the premises can control the noise and can be cited. So anyone who is in control can receive the citation. Doesn't have to be the owner of the house. This is their choice. This is not the color of law. And I don't think it's just a misunderstanding of the law, because as sadly happens often, the police don't even know the laws that they're supposed to be regulating. However, as unfortunate as that is, I don't believe that that's the case here either, because they seem particularly focused on isolating and targeting particular individuals who later on would wind up in the news under the national theory and quote isolated targeted attack against them. And the backpack incident is beyond wrong. Okay, if the backpack incident were a legitimate incident of in public, this backpack had been abandoned. And there was some reason for the police to believe that it had something nefarious in it. They could get away with searching it and dumping out the liquor in it. However, without the proper probable cause in order to search the backpack in the first place, they had no reason to know what was in it. And this breaks the United States Constitution against unreasonable search and seizures yet again as they unzip this backpack. Now, this is so relevant that there have been cases where people have absolutely had bags of drugs on them, but on their person as a passenger, and have stepped out of the vehicle, which is the officer's reason of probable cause when they pull a passenger from the vehicle in order to search it. The vehicle is the item to search. Now, decided in many cases, there's a lot of case law about this. The federal courts have long decided that this counts as another thing, and even a vehicular situation, much less on someone's property, okay? It can't be abandoned in this situation, and it's so obvious due to the fact of when they sit there and hype themselves up and get over there agitated and get to dumping shit out, loving themselves, having a good time.
Somewhere. They're going somewhere. But hey, they abandoned it. Yep. So guess what? Start dumping alcohol. They abandoned property. I like it when they abandon their shit. Oh, White Claws? White Claws. They're gonna be so angry at me. They're cold too, man. Yeah, these are cold. God. But that one was already open. Hello. All right, Josh. Jordan, you talk to them. Yep. Maddie. Okay.
Hi, this is Officer Wells from Austin Police Department. Who am I speaking with?
Just remind people that we can be fairly reasonable, but when people want to be dumb, we have a tendency to be assholes.
They're not just, trying to protect the public. They're having a good time. And someone who laughs and enjoys themselves when they are harming, when they're going outside of the color of law of their uniform and their job to the public specifically, that is scary. So it may seem innocuous or like a small thing, but to me it's not. It's not a small thing at all. And there seems to be a particular vengeance. They spew that shit everywhere and threw a little shindig out there.
Yep. And just remember, the Dean of Students Office probably will be contacting you about this as well. Okay. About student code of conduct issues.
Yes, I have it. What's a good telephone number for you? Xana,
here's your ID back. Thank you so much.
Any questions?
No questions.
Okay.
She came to the door. She accepts the noise warning, since again, they want her ID and information without actually giving her any citation or handing her any warning, and then threatened to go to the school and escalate the matter even further. And for what? Because there she is. So for what? It doesn't surprise me, again, that these guys have files that are being hidden within the Civil Rights Office, okay? No surprise. This cat joins in on the party and starts just handing it over to them. So, he also happens to mysteriously just still be standing outside while everyone else seems to be gone or avoiding the police altogether. He's just standing there waiting for the cop to give him orders, and my little red light is going off on him, you guys. We can call it the orange light, okay? If they have the blue lights, then we got the orange light going off on him, because that don't seem right.
Hey, bud. We're just here for a noise complaint. Can you tell whoever lives here to come talk to us?
Sorry, I did not hear you. Sorry, say that again.
We're just here for a noise complaint. Whoever lives here needs to come talk to us, or we're going to start doing a lot more than just deal with noise.
Go tell them.
Yeah, just tell them to come to the front door. We'll deal with the noise complaint, and we'll leave. Yep, thank you.
Yet, we do hear them yelling out Kaylee's name in the beginning, and it sounds like although someone was screaming at someone to go answer the door, someone stuck to their constitutional rights here because they don't actually get in contact with any owners other than via telephone, where yet again, without the need to hand them a citation. It's funny that they got charges over in WSU for grooming young girls, and one wonders if these police are going to use their phone numbers later and maybe, be good cops to them. Who knows? Because no one knows what the hell is going on, but it does appear they have investigative files. They could also notably be the files from charges which have been laid against the individuals in the residence. As the cops are getting turned up, I wouldn't be surprised at all if there are some visits which they didn't include in their public records request at all, especially considering they seem to redact the incidents going up to the houses. So in each video, you'll notice that it's redacted as the cop walks up.
Stop and watch. I gotta wait for him to get up here anyway. So this is where we can stop, observe what's going on, see if there's any other activity we need to be aware of. Take care.
Send whoever lives here down the door. Whoever lives here down the door. Not leaving.
Yeah. For the most part. They're scared. Oh my god! For the most part. They're scared. Oh my god! I think someone's coming down now.
Abandoned property.
Moscow 157. Do we have any recent involvements at 1122 Queen? Their vehicles are there at least. You can play stupid games if you want to. There's a party somewhere.
Yeah, their music got real quiet.
Real fast. Yeah.
Real fast.
I mean, Six Pez is the only one that I hear.
Yep.
They said they're going to another party. I wonder if there's another Greek party somewhere.
Probably. Because they were taking alcohol somewhere.
Yeah, they were going somewhere.
But hey, they abandoned it.
Yep.
But guess what?
We're dumping alcohol.
They abandoned property.
I like it when they abandon their shit.
Yep. Some more in there.
Exactly. Street youths. White Claws?
White Claws.
Nice. I hate when I leave my White Claws. Oh, they're cold too. Man.
Yeah, these are cold.
Whew. Oh, God. An open one. Hello.
You do that? Learned that from a college kid.
Yep.
Yep. Okay. Hi, this is Dr. Maddie, 1 second. You shouldn't have volume up on this phone here.
Well, that's all the way over there. Just everyone fucking ran away? They not gonna come back? Do you think I'm gonna leave?